What's going on, guys? It's Turin here, and today, guys, I would like to welcome you to the first entry in our random ranked series. So this is a new series on the channel where we're going to play a ranked quick match, so one of the quick matches that does affect your ladder rating, but we're actually going to be using a completely auto-generated army. So we actually have a bit of a rule with that where when I auto-generate, I get one mulligan, but with that second army I get, I have to stay with. So this was actually my second army I rolled here, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. This was by far one of the most fun games I've had since I started Total War Warhammer. Just ridiculous, and you get to experiment with a lot of units that you wouldn't traditionally use. So hopefully you guys enjoy this build. If you do, please give it a like and leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. So as far as my army composition goes, and it's going to be a little bit strange because I'm so used to explaining like why I picked things, but here, guys, it is completely different. So what I was given by the Chaos Gods, I do have a Goblin Wolf Chariot. So I've actually never even used this unit before. If you take a look, they're going to be pretty terrible against the Dwarves because they don't even have your traditional armor piercing. They do have a bit of an anti-infantry bonus, it looks like, on their melee attack, but still there is no heavy armor piercing. So they do have a very janky missile attack, but guys, it is going to be a wild party over there. So aside from that, I was given some Savage Orc Boar Boy Biggins, which I was quite happy about. Because these guys do have a physical resistance of 30%, and they have very, very heavy melee armor piercing damage, so if I'm able to get them in the back line, they're going to do pretty well for themselves. Granted, they will suffer pretty badly against the Rune of Wrath and Ruin and Focus Missile Fire, because granted, they still only do have 25% armor. Aside from that, I was given a group of two groups of trolls. So traditional trolls who did get buffed in the most recent patch, and they're really not that terrible actually against the dwarves. They do have regeneration, so if you're able to like keep them fighting, they can do some serious heavy armor piercing damage with that 86 weapon strength. And even if they do rout off, as long as the rest of your army doesn't rout, they'll come back and start fighting again, with greater health. So pretty cool unit, and I was very happy about getting these guys. I did get a group of standard goblins who the computer decided to chevron up quite a bit. Probably not the best use of their money, but hey guys, I cannot complain. Second group of trolls, and in the far side, I was so happy about getting these guys. Granted, I would have liked the armor sundering variant, but still, these guys are a nice unbreakable unit. They do have poison, and have this nice the loons of the 8 peaks, which is pretty cool and does some decent damage against like bunched up dwarves. But guys, this was the ultimate blessing right here, to Rusty Error. So this is by far, in my opinion, one of the best picks against the dwarves. It can shut down gyrocopters, it can do well against quarrelers, it can pretty much do well against anything the dwarves bring to the table. So I was incredibly lucky to get these guys. On top of that, I did get 2 giants. So I have a very, very like heavy stompy army. I have 2 groups of trolls and then 2 giants here who are going to be led by Grimgore. So I was unfortunate. I didn't get a caster of any type, but granted, against the dwarves, like if you're not going to get a caster against any faction, it might as well be the dwarves. So on top of that, guys, I did get a Doomdiver Catapult, which is going to be pretty nice for focusing down rangers and units like that. And over here, I did get Death's Creepers, so the Regiment of Renown Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, and I also did get some regular Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers who had a few chevrons invested in them as well. So they're going to be pretty they won't perform terribly well against traditional dwarf units, but against like rangers, which my opponent does have, they might do okay. So for my opponent's army, he has a front line of miners with blasting charges. He was definitely expecting some black orcs and was not expecting the randomly generated army. Of course, most people don't do that on ladder. And he does have dwarf warriors in the secondary line here. Again, going very, very wide. And he actually did bring the Slayer King. So Ungrim, he has his anti-large bonus. He's a decent lord, and he's somewhat cheap also compared to some of the other dwarf lords. Like if you have kind of a kitted out High King Thorgrim, they usually run over like 2,000. But Ungrim you can usually get for like 1,700, 1,600, give or take. So, again, you can go a little bit wider with him as well. So he does have some dwarf warriors. He has a secondary line of rangers, which are really, really going to suck for my giants. Because the giants, again, I actually didn't think he had any range at the moment because they were in stock mode. But when those giants get close, this is definitely going to be tough. So Ungrim's also going to be a good performer against both trolls and the giant with his new anti-large bonus. Aside from that, he does have some dwarf warriors in the back. He looks like he has 2 grudge throwers and an additional group of dwarf warriors. So man, he went really, really wide with his army. But it's going to be tough for sure because, again, I have a lot of non-armor piercing units. So let's get right down to the business, guys, and see how it goes. So I'm just advancing my main army here, and you can also see that my Doomdiver Catapult is advancing, and I was definitely going to try and target it on these rangers, but he does get a nice little ambush and does some pretty good HP damage on those Forest Goblin Spider Riders. But guys, the real business is coming. The Goblin Wolf Rider Chariots are kind of circling around the back line, doing a little bit of work, but man, those rangers came out of nowhere and just started peppering these guys. And they only have 25 armor, are very squishy, and you can see their leadership is actually at like 10 or 15 right now. So I decided to just charge them in and just kind of a desperate haggard last stand. And I figured you guys would want to see this anyway. So here they go. They're coming in pretty hot, and they're going to get right into those rangers. But guys, they're going to do almost no damage. Those rangers don't lose a single model. These guys are definitely going to turn and tuck tail here. They get a Rune of Wrath and Ruin. They get focus fired, collapsed on by dwarf warriors, and they are out of here. So the goblins have done their part, and they haven't broken yet. They're just wavering, but now they're starting to take massive fire from the full line of quarrelers. So very, very tough stuff. So I'm getting the Savage Orc Boars around to kind of try and charge in here and soften them up, but I also do get the Forest Goblin Spider Riders and the Death Creepers over here. And the Death Creepers also have regeneration, which isn't going to be bad in a nutritious battle. So right now they're just shooting in on some of these Rangers, and it should be pretty good as Rangers only have 40 armor. So over here, the Trolls are kind of engaging in the front line, and they're just absolutely whomping on some of these frontline troops. And neither Miners nor these Great Weapon Dwarves here are going to do well against the Trolls. And you can see that the Trolls are just karate kicking these Dwarves back to the Shadow Realm, just doing some excellent work. So, you know, guys, this unorthodox pick of the Trolls, well, I wouldn't call it a pick, but they're doing very, very good. And you can see the 8 peaks loonies coming in, and they are unbreakable, so that Rune of Wrath will do good damage to them, but they're going to do a really good job supporting those Trolls. So you can also see the Giants coming in as well, and they're just going to get in here and start smacking up some of these Dwarves in the front line. But over here, once these Coilers reform, I'm going to start taking a lot of damage. Excuse me, not Coilers, but the Rangers. But over here, you can see my Savage Orc Boars are in here, and they're doing pretty good chopping up some of these Rangers here. But still, they are very lightly armored and, you know, will eventually get worn down even by, like, low-tier Dwarf Warriors. So the Savage Orcs over here are in pretty bad shape. They are shaken, so I do kind of just ride them through and figure I got to disrupt as many of these missiles as I can to allow my Giants to really do some work. So this other Giant started to get focused really, really aggressively, so I do bring the Giant back here to try and disrupt them. I didn't really have any other troops that could like get back here this easily, but he's doing a pretty good job. You can see he's stomping out some of these Rangers. They are shaken, and they might get terror routed. As you can see, this group of Rangers does get terror routed right now. And I was also using Rusty Arrows to really, really help focus back here. So in the front line, I do have a Giant as well as Grimgor, I think is somewhere nearby. Let's go ahead and see if we can find him here. I think, yeah. So Grimgar. So Grimgor and the Giant here are in here fighting a bunch of angry dwarves. The Slayer King, though, is getting really, really good unimpeded attacks on my Giant, and you can see the HP of the Giant is quite low. He's actually down to about 60%, but Grimgor is just chopping it up in here, doing some serious work. And man, you can see when he pulls that axe up, you can tell there's going to be some force on the come down there. So the Giant looks like he's about to grab someone to feast on. Definitely a good time for all. So unfortunately, some of these Dwarf Warriors do sneak through to my Rusty Arrows back here, so I'm definitely going to need to pull those back. And my front line, for the most part, you guys saw it consisted of like some Goblin Spears, some 2 Trolls and 2 Giants, and the 8 peak loony. So I didn't have like the tankiest front line, and unfortunately the Trolls are getting broken because their leadership is pretty poor. They're getting satchel charges thrown at them, and they're definitely out of here, boys. So in the back line, I did push my Giants through because, again, I knew I had to shut down these missiles. And they do a pretty good job, actually, of terrifying these Rangers back here. And also, I do have these Forest Goblin Spider Riders who have 11 kills and actually 9 and 11. So that's actually not bad. So they're really doing some good work against traditionally very sturdy Dawi. And these guys do have the Bronze Shield, so they're going to be even more resilient. But you can see some nice blasting charges coming over, and just massive fire, even from these regrouped Rangers, are just absolutely peppering my Giants. So this was a really, really tough situation. This Giant is definitely going to go down here shortly. He does have some Dwarf Warriors on him, and let's see how much HP he has. So it looks like he has 149 HP, but Giants have excellent leadership. So down he goes. He's going to fall, and unfortunately he doesn't land on any Dwarves. He just takes a nice faceplant there, and it's had enough. But his Giant buddy over here is definitely breathing some of that hot breath on these guys, and you can see it just shattering these Rangers. He's just continuing to pressure them, and what I really wanted to do was just keep pushing back and get them off the map, because I knew the edge was right here, and if I could get rid of these Rangers, I felt pretty confident about this Giant being able to deal with like an army that didn't have Slayers. So still, I was just trying to push, but I was taking so much crossfire. But thankfully, I did have the Forest Goblin Spider Riders who are continuing to poke away. So up to 14 and 15 kills respectively. Definitely not terrible. So in the front lines, the Rusty Arrows are doing a great job poking in here. These Trolls, supported by Grimgor and the boys, are doing a very, very good job. But unfortunately, this Runesmith and some of these other Dwarves did push back to my back line, and I really needed the Rusty Arrows to keep fighting. But let's see where Grimgor is. Yeah, he's over here. So unfortunately for my opponent, Ungrim is kind of isolated right now. Some of his low-tier Dwarves, the Dwarf Warriors, and some of these Miners around him were just heavily, heavily kind of outclassed by the Trolls. It's like, I never say that. That's something I never thought I would say. But the Trolls are definitely outclassing this Dwarf line, just laying an absolute smackdown, and Grimgor is in great shape. And you can see the Slayer King is starting to take a bit of damage, but unfortunately, the Rusty Arrows are being chased off by some Dwarf Warriors. Very, very tough situation for me because I do need them definitely to win this battle. So over here, my opponent does have a Runesmith continuing to kind of fend off these goblins. My Doomdiver catapults are also still generating pretty massive value, but man, my Giants are not having a good time. They're down to about 1,000 HP, but still the Doomdivers are really, really good at working on these guys. And you can see they're getting in there. Granted, that only killed, you know, maybe 1 Ranger. Still, over the course of the battle, it's probably racked up quite a few kills. Let's go ahead and check. So 55 kills is definitely not bad. It still has over half of its ammunition, and it's going to be, you know, really helpful in a battle that is definitely going to go for some time. So over here, some of my Forest Goblin Spider Riders get caught by some of these Miners. I was a little bit sloppy, but I do pull back, and they can fire while moving, which is quite nice. And I'm able to reposition to Rusty Arrows and also intercept that group of Dwarf Warriors with some of these Trolls over here. So things are looking pretty good, and I'm getting some good peppering fire on some of these Miners. And you can also see that Ungrim over here is surrounded by Grimgor, and he is definitely having a bad time. I wish I could have shown you guys that, but Grimgor and these Trolls actually just took him to the grave. So very, very tough stuff for Grimgor, but not Grimgor, excuse me, for Ungrim. But he put up a great fight. But Grimgor is definitely a scary duelist, especially when surrounded by Trolls. So over here, we see we still have a full group of trolls left. And guys, this is what I was telling you about. Their HP is just continuing to tick up. Like over the course of the battle, they got brought down to about 2,000 HP. And I remember this group was at like 1,900. And they just kind of kept coming back up, just coming back into the battle. And we're really just playing into the circumstances of this battle. And I was actually incorrect. It looks like he was still alive, Ungrim. But yeah, he's probably going to have a little bit of trouble. You can see the trolls are definitely pissed off, avenging some of their fellow trolls who I'm sure have been slayed by this guy. So he's surrounded right now. He has about 400 HP. But man, when he gets his attacks in there against these trolls with that anti-large bonus, he is just going to whomp them down. So we see him coming in here. He gets that nice chop on that troll, and this guy is definitely getting sent to the Shadow Realm right here. Definitely not having a good time. But Grimgor is somewhere over here. Let's see where Grimgor is. I think he's coming in to help. So we have the two trolls here. We have Grimgor working on the Runesmith over here. So a lot of the dwarf resistance, if we're able to like kill these dwarf warriors as well as their leadership and that runesmith, they're really not going to have much other than maybe some rangers who the trolls can probably chase down pretty easily. So the Rusty Arrows over here doing a great job peppering some of these reinforcing dwarves, and you can also see Death's creepers with their regeneration doing a pretty good job for themselves. And they do have regeneration, do they? Yeah, and poison attacks and stalk, so pretty good stuff here. But you can see the Slayer King kind of scurrying over here doing his best to run away. He does have 100 HP, and you can see he's taking some missile fire as well, and even a single troll is able to knock him over. And personally, as a dwarf player, one of the reasons I don't bring Ungrim is because he can get knocked around, whereas High King Thorgrim honestly does a better job versus large units simply because he's not going to be knocked around. So definitely a mechanic I wish they would change. Maybe give him some sort of a passive ability called like Resolute, where he can like stand and not be knocked over by charges, because that's a really abusive mechanic in this game. And you can see to 8 Peaks Loonies throwing some of their buds over here, and they're doing a pretty good job cleaving some of these miners, definitely hurting their leadership a little bit. And this troll pocket is just fighting to the bitter end, especially with the leadership of Grimgor over here. But Grimgor is also pretty low. He's taking some serious attrition damage, and Ungrim, unfortunately for us, did get away with 73 HP, so that was really tough. So pretty shortly here, I'm actually going to change the Doomdiver Catapult and start trying to snipe out his Lord, and it's really not bad. You guys have probably seen a lot of Bretonnia games and different matches like that where I was able to take out like a King Loon with Doomdivers, and you can see they're coming in hot for Ungrim right here. And let's see, it looks like they aim a little bit high. I think they were actually still shooting back here, but there is a point in the battle where I do switch on to Ungrim. But unfortunately, my trolls do get kind of crumpled in the front line by the remnants of this dwarf army because their leadership is really poor, like starting around 38. So I do a little bit of a tactical retreat with Grimgor, knowing that these trolls will recoup. So I figured I could run back, regroup, and then use this Doomdiver Catapult to work down a lot of my opponent's troops. So you can see they're actually shooting in here now at Ungrim, the Doomdivers are, and he only has 73 HP. So 1 or 2 really solid contacts here could be enough to put him out of commission. So that's really what I was kind of banking my marbles on. So if we look around, I do have the Rusty Arrows with a little bit of ammunition left, and let's see if this gets him. So it comes in here, it makes square contact. Guys, he has 1 HP, and let's see if he actually gets up, and it looks like another one does hit him while he's down, and he gets put out of commission. So that was pretty ridiculous. Definitely a good time, but these trolls, let's go ahead and see what their kind of leadership debilitations are right now. So they only have 9 leadership. Looks like it's mostly damage sustained, but their base value is only 38. So yeah, it's pretty much all the damage they've taken, which is pretty ridiculous stuff. So Grimgor and the boys, I'm trying to get him close to these trolls so his encouragement from his leadership can get there and kind of keep him fighting. And I do have a few gobos, about 32, 2 groups of trolls, and I do have the Forest Goblin Spider Riders who are actually back there just trolling my opponent's back line, chasing down a lot of his troops. And they do have poison on both their melee attack and their missile attack, so they're going to be okay in a duelist situation versus like ranger type units. So Grimgor and the trolls are reforming ranks, getting ready for that final battle, but most of the Dawi forces are very tattered, and you can see the Forest Goblin Spider Riders back here just doing a great job trolling these guys out, just kind of cycle charging them, knocking them over, and they actually do break them. And guys, 30 rangers is nothing to sneeze at. That's like a pretty healthy group of troops that are somewhat capable in melee with 39 or 29 melee defense and 25 weapon strength. I mean, granted that 25 is when they're poisoned, but you can see these guys are just MVPs right now. They have 56 kills, which is so much for like a group of Forest Goblin Spider Riders against the dwarves. They're also riding around kind of poking this grudge there, but unfortunately my opponent does use the Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Is getting some pretty good focus fire here, but still it looks like Grimgor and the boys have healed up. They're back up to 1500 HP, and they're still healing, and this other group is still healing at about 1600 HP. So my opponent pops his Rune of Wrath and Ruin, and just some advice, I make this mistake too. Try to be patient with that and not pop it until they're actually in the sustained combat, because he pops it preemptively. So what I actually do is just like turn and walk away, and then I was just looking at my opponent's if you look at the tooltip on the bottom, you can see the duration effect. So I just kind of wait for that to wear off. I take a little bit of missile fire, but it's definitely worth it, and then I just charge in here. And guys, this is the last stand here. So the trolls are going to get in here. You can see they're leaping, they're pissed, they're ready to troll these Dawi, and they're just going absolutely ham. And they do cause fear. I don't know if they cause terror. Yeah, they cause fear, which is going to be pretty good. So they're going to get in here, and these are dwarf warriors, and I think a few miners, pretty low tier stuff with like a very injured runesmith. And unfortunately for my opponent, I still do have Grimgore, who's, you know, about 20% HP, but still there's not enough like armor piercing or like, you know, oomph here to really finish him off. So, and also there are a few gobos in the back line, which are going to be very, very helpful. And these trolls are an absolute force to be reckoned with right now. And you can see Grimgore is going to get in here. He's probably going to go after that runesmith who is already wavering, and you can see the runesmith is immediately just shattered from that battle. So the rest of the Dawi forces are shattered. And guys, the randomly generated army actually was able to win a match on ranked, which is pretty cool. But guys, at the end of the day, I think I was, you know, given a pretty good army. Like, as far as random generated armies go, like, this is pretty decent, right? Like, 2 giants, 2 trolls. I had some fodder units to kind of support the trolls. The Depths creepers weren't bad against the rangers either. Like, if that was like a Quarreler type army, or, you know, had some slayers, if he had brought like a single group of slayers, that would have been a really, really brutal match. So, you know, again, I got a little bit lucky in terms of my opponent's army pick, but man, that was so much fun using that random generated army. But look at the performance from Rusty Errors and these trolls, 182. The Giants underperformed a little bit, but my opponent had a really good answer to them with these Rangers. So anyways, very well played to my opponent, Nurse. Look forward to seeing you again on Ladder. And if you guys like this format, you want to see more of it, let me know. And, you know, I wouldn't mind including a few of these a week because that was super fun. So let me know your opinions, guys, and we can go from there. So thanks again for watching, guys. Have an excellent night and more content coming soon.